Hey everybody, ABC 10 meteorologist Brendan Minchef here. Happy New Year. We're almost there, coming up on the final days of the year and the start of 2025. Here's the deal though, I got some clouds in the forecast for New Year's Eve and New Year's Day, but typically we only care most about the clouds on the 31st. Here's a look at the timeline for this coming week. So New Year's Eve, clear skies in the morning. We're going to start with sunshine early in the day. We'll stay sunny through about lunchtime, but then clouds start to move in. And by the evening hours, I'll be looking at mostly cloudy to totally overcast skies. And that continues through about midnight on New Year's Eve into New Year's Day. For Wednesday, January 1st, mostly cloudy to overcast skies are expected to continue. We'll see some scattered light showers across the really upper parts of the Sacramento Valley. But most of us will stay dry, and I'm not really looking at any snow in the high country either. On Thursday, it's kind of a break. We'll see some clouds. We'll see a little bit of sunshine as well at times, but generally partly to mostly cloudy skies for Thursday. But then Friday's our next chance of valley rain and Sierra snow. So we'll jump into a little bit more detail about all those things here. Starting off Tuesday morning, again, we're looking at mostly clear skies. 35 Sacramento, 37 Vacaville, 35 in Fairfield, 36 Stockton, 37 in Modesto for the final day of the year. 38 Placerville, 32 in Angels Camp, 13 in Truckee, 14 in South Lake Tahoe. Now that we are clear and we're dry, we got to get used to bringing the heavier jacket with us once again. Patchy fog is possible tomorrow morning, but for the most part, I'm not really expecting a lot of fog. It'll be pretty isolated. Through the daytime tomorrow, we are looking at temperatures to climb. So we're back again to this pattern where we're clear. We don't have the clouds. We see the daytime cycles where it's colder in the mornings, warmer in the afternoons, colder in the mornings. And that'll continue for the next couple of days until we get kind of our next system on the way in. So 30s to start, 40s by lunchtime, low to mid 50s during the afternoon, back into the 40s by 8 o'clock. But look at this. You see the sunshine and then the clouds working their way in. That's the biggest thing to know for New Year's Eve. Temperatures in the afternoon tomorrow, again, low to mid 50s across much of the valley. 58 Vacaville, 58 Fairfield, 53 Sacramento, 55 Stockton, 54 Modesto, 51 Placerville, 41 Truckee, but building clouds. So let's take a little more detailed look at the next couple of days. New Year's Eve starts in the 30s, will be in the 50s. New Year's Day very similar, but those clouds come in. So don't let the initial clear skies fool you. We will be cloudy as we head into the start of 2025. And here is a look at Futurecast. Now, this is Tuesday morning, maybe a few high clouds in the upper valley. Most of us are clear, still by lunchtime, looking at mostly clear skies, but clouds build in through the afternoon. This is now early evening hours on December 31st. By the time we get towards about 8, 9 o'clock, it's mostly cloudy to overcast, basically across Northern California. Maybe we'll see a little clearing as we get towards midnight and we ring in the new year, but certainly there's still going to be a lot of cloud cover out there across Northern California. A little clearer to start Wednesday morning, but then the clouds build back in, some showers across the upper part of the Sacramento Valley, maybe some very light snow showers, but generally not expecting much in the way of rain or snow for Wednesday. It is going to be mostly cloudy to overcast throughout the daytime on Wednesday. By Thursday, we'll have some more sunshine, a mix of sun and clouds, but then we've got another system on the way by the end of the week. And we'll talk about that in a second, but I do want to talk about the rainfall that we've seen here in Northern California and the lack thereof down in Southern California. So this month in downtown Sacramento, we've seen almost 3.5 inches of rain. The average to date is 3.25. So we are running about a tenth or so above normal for the month of December. For the water year, which started October 1st, we've seen almost 7.5 inches of rain. The average to date is just under 6 inches, which means we're running about 1.5 inches above average. This is good, right? We are doing good so far for the water year, but it's a totally different story in the southern half of the state. I mean, look at this. San Francisco, 8.5 inches, Sacramento, 7.5, Redding over 19, Eureka over 23 at this point. Stockton coming up on a 4.25, Modesto over 3.5 inches, but it's just a totally different story for places like Los Angeles, San Diego. Los Angeles International Airport, LAX, has their driest start to the water year on record, and records date back to 1944. For San Diego, it's the third driest start to the water year on record, with records dating back to 1850 for San Diego. So it is honestly a historically dry start to the water year. Again, that started October 1st. But this doesn't tell us much. This just tells us how much we've seen. Look at this. LA has barely seen 1/4 inch. San Diego, not a 1/4 inch, 3/100 of an inch. And San Diego seen just over 1/10 of an inch. When we look at the departure from normal, this tells us how far above or below we are. Like we talked about a minute ago, we're plus 1.5 in Sacramento, San Francisco plus 1 and 8,500. Excuse me. Eureka 8.25, Redding 7.75 above average, right? Now, Stockton, Modesto, a little bit below, but very close to where they should be. Look at this, though. Santa Barbara, -4 inches. LAX, -3.25. San Diego, -2.5 inches below where they should be. So we just have not seen any rain in the southern half of the state. There's definitely, pros and cons to this. A pro would be that, all the big reservoirs are up here in Northern California, the water supply reservoirs. So it's good that we're seeing all this rain in Northern California. But there's also a lot of reservoirs down in Southern California that are going to start hurting over the next month or so if we just can't get any rain down there. In terms of snow, this most recent week, this Christmas week, has actually done us quite a bit of good for especially the Northern Sierra. 166% of average to date, 55% of that April 1st average. So April 1st, typically peak snowpack. We're now halfway there in the Northern Sierra. Central Sierra, now 100% of the average to date, 35% of the April 1st average. Southern Sierra still lacking a little bit, 79% of that average to date, about 25% of that April 1st average. Statewide, we're coming up on 40% of our typical peak snowpack. So still definitely a ways to go. Northern Sierra, like with rainfall, Northern Sierra is way ahead with snowfall. But we do need to get some more snow in the Central and Southern Sierra. We're good for now, but certainly as we move into January and February, our two wettest months of the year, we would hope to kind of spread the wealth in both rain and snow a little bit. Let's talk about the El Nino Southern Oscillation. This has a lot to do with the type of winter precipitation that we see or don't see here in California. So in INSO-neutral conditions, the cool waters off the coast of South America, the warmer waters out over the western Pacific, and we've got, kind of typical trade winds, typical currents. But in El Nino conditions, those currents, the trade winds are weaker. So the currents actually flip and push that warmer water back out over the equatorial Pacific and off the coast of South America, with the cooler water remaining well down the Chilean coast. For us here in California, what that means for our winters, typically wet. And we know just kind of generally that El Nino winters are wetter winters, La Nina winters, drier winters. But this is kind of the textbook precipitation pattern for El Nino winters. Wetter across definitely Southern California. Northern California is typically pretty average in terms of rainfall. But also much of the southern U.S. sees a wetter than average winter, while we're a little bit drier in parts of Appalachia and the Midwest, and a warmer than average winter. Usually, again, this is textbook, doesn't always happen, there's exceptions, but usually a warmer than average winter across the upper Great Plains and Pacific Northwest, because that polar jet is well to the northern, well into the northern third of the United States and Atlantic Canada. That's an El Nino year. That's not what we have, though. We are in La Nina conditions, and so what that means is the trade winds are stronger. That keeps that current stronger as well, really pushes that warmer water out into the western Pacific and brings in a bunch of cooler water that upwells off the coast of South America and pushes out into the equatorial Pacific. So strong trade winds pushes that cooler water further out. What that means for us, because this has a big influence on the type of winter we have. Again, got to reiterate that. During La Nina winters, we typically have a wetter than average winter across the Pacific Northwest and far northern California. Northern California in our region, right, Capital Region, Bay Area, Central Sierra, typically sees a fairly average winter in La Nina, but certainly when we get our driest winters, that's almost always during a La Nina year. But look at this. Southern California, the desert Southwest, the southern Great Plains typically sees a much drier than average winter. And so that map that we looked at a minute ago, where we had all the rain in Northern California and almost none of the rain in Southern California, that is a textbook La Nina winter. There are, again, some exceptions to this. This is a map of a weak La Nina winter and the averages of precipitation, right? Percent of normal precip. This is important because we are in a weak La Nina. This isn't a moderate one. This isn't a strong one. This is a weak one. So it's kind of teetering on neutral conditions to weak La Nina. That's where we are. And in the Sacramento Valley, we typically see about 98% of a normal precipitation year during weak La Nina events. So during a weak La Nina like this one, we typically end up with about average. Same is true for the San Joaquin Valley. Bay Area about 95% or so. A little bit above average across the far north coast. A little bit above average in the northeast plateau as well. But as we get down to Southern California, remember that textbook example where in La Nina winters, we're typically drier in the southern part of the state. This is kind of correlation to that. This is showing that those numbers back up that textbook example, right? The Southern California coast usually only sees about 80% of a normal water year during weak La Nina events. So certainly drier, but other parts of Southern California are in the 90s. So we'll say anywhere from about 80% to 90% of normal. I know this is a lot of numbers, but I'm just trying to demonstrate here that during weak La Nina events, it's not always a slam dunk that we're drier than average. And in fact, I've pulled a couple of notable weak La Nina winters for the Sacramento Valley. 2016 to 17, that was a drought-busting year, remember. We were 156% of average. That was an exceptionally wet winter for us here in the Sacramento Valley. 2005 and 6, also a weak La Nina winter, 138% of average precipitation. Our most recent drought-busting year, 22-23, we were 120% of average. 83-84 also, we know, was another wet year, 108% of average. So we can get some drought-busting rainfall in weak La Nina events, but we can also get some of our driest years, 2017-18. 1 year, just 1 year after our big drought-busting winter, we were below average, only getting 76% of a normal water year in a weak La Nina event. So it's not a slam dunk. Strong and moderate La Ninas are almost always drier than average. We can look at the numbers and say, oh, it's a moderate La Nina winter, it's a strong La Nina winter. We can almost take that to the bank and say, this is going to be a drier than average winter. That is not the case with a weak La Nina, which with the numbers that we just examined and talked about, we saw, right? We are above average in the Sacramento Valley right now in terms of rainfall, and Northern Sierra is above average in terms of snowfall. But Southern California is certainly hurting. To bring this back into the weather pattern, because that's kind of a bigger picture, things that we look at to kind of help us kind of forecast out. What does the next month look like? What does that seasonal forecast look like? Well, to bring it, again, a little closer to home, 8 to 14-day climate outlook. This is more tangible. What does the next week to two look like? Very likely warmer across much of the U.S. West, whereas we're very likely cooler across much of the eastern United States. We could see some very cold temperatures headed into the second week of January for parts even of the deep south. But in terms of rainfall, now we're entering a drier pattern over the next week or two. Very likely drier than average across much of the U.S. West, including all of the state of California. This is the 8 to 14-day outlook. Again, that is January 7th through 13th, whereas the upper Great Plains, parts of the eastern Rockies are running or are looking to maybe be a little bit wetter than average. But importantly for us on the West Coast, we don't really care necessarily what happens here. We care a lot about what happens here in the Sierra, in Northern California for the reservoirs, down in Southern California reservoirs as well. And it does look drier headed into the new year. That was a lot of information. That is kind of a deep dive, a little bit of some of the background of what we meteorologists and climatologists look at when we're making these seasonal forecasts, these longer range forecasts, these water forecasts, right? So just a little peek behind the curtain there. Back to the 10-day forecast here. 53 on Tuesday for the final day of 2024. Also 53 for the first day of 2025. Mornings starting off in the 30s. So it is definitely going to be cold to start. We'll be a little bit warmer for Thursday and Friday, starting in the 40s with afternoons in the mid to upper 50s. Again, next chance of rain is going to be Friday. Not necessarily heavy rain, maybe a quarter of an inch in the valley, up to a foot of snow at the high passes. So kind of similar to the storms that we saw a lot during Christmas week. Saturday into Sunday, we do dry out, but we're going to stick with the cloud cover in through really the first week and a half of 2025. Not seeing a lot of days with a lot of sunshine. It'll probably be a lot of a mix of sun and clouds for much of the first, again, week and a half of January. So drier, but not necessarily all around sunnier. If you're watching this video on YouTube and you liked this video, you liked the information in it, I recommend getting the ABC 10 Plus app. It's free. There's no subscription. You don't have to pay for it. But we have our weather playlist there. We've got these types of weather explainers, these extended forecasts. We also have deep dives into weather, water, and climate across not just Northern California, but also the state as a whole, such as, does California do a good job managing the water in its reservoirs and in the mountains, in the snowpack, right? That's all on the ABC 10 Plus app. Again, those deep dives, these extended forecasts. If you like to nerd out with the numbers, download that app there. It's free, it's live, it's local, it's always on Roku, Fire TV, and Apple TV. Thanks for watching, and have a Happy New Year.